The ones who betray you always smile first. They never come with knives drawn. They come with warmth. They come with open hands, kind eyes, and laughter that feels like home. They speak your name like they've always known it. They tell you you're safe, that they see you, that they'd never leave. And part of you, the oldest, most innocent part, believes them. Not because they're convincing, but because you want them to be true. Because the child in you still aches for someone who stays. For someone who doesn't walk away when your darkness spills out. You want to believe that loyalty lives in smiles, that love is what it claims to be, that people are what they pretend. But the ones who betray you, they never come cloaked in shadows. They come in light. That's what makes them dangerous. They mirror the affection you've spent your whole life chasing. They mimic the safety your inner child was denied. And by the time their true face emerges, it's too late. You've already handed them the keys to your soul. Not because you're naive, but because you were trained, long ago, to earn love by surrendering yourself, to silence your knowing, your instincts, your boundaries. You were taught that love meant being open, being available, being agreeable, being small. So when someone smiles and stays, you don't ask why. You ask, how do I keep them? But not everyone who stays deserves to. Not everyone who smiles means it. And not everyone who says, I love you, understands what love costs. Betrayal doesn't begin with a dagger. It begins with comfort, with shared secrets, with mutual laughter, with a silence between two people that feels like understanding. And then one day, the silence changes. It no longer holds peace. It holds avoidance, distance, calculation. They don't tell you they're leaving. They don't tell you they've turned. They just begin to drift. And you feel it before you see it. The texts slow down, the warmth cools, the mirror fogs, and suddenly, the person you trusted to hold your pain is now the reason for it. And your first instinct is not anger, it's blame. What did I do wrong? Was I too much, too quiet, too broken? You pick yourself apart trying to justify their absence, because the wound they reopened is older than them, older than any friendship, older than any partner. It is the wound of being left. Carl Jung called it the abandonment of the self. That moment in childhood when you realized your needs made others uncomfortable, your truth made others leave. So you learned to shapeshift, to mirror what was safe, to edit your emotions, to become lovable by becoming invisible. And now, as an adult, the people who smile the most are often the ones who sensed that wound and used it, not always out of malice, sometimes just out of instinct. Because people, most people, are drawn not to your soul, but to their reflection in your approval. They love how you make them feel. They love the space you give them, the silence you keep, the way you don't ask for too much, until you do, until your truth rises, until your needs awaken, until your mask cracks just enough for your real self to be seen. And then, the betrayal, subtle, delayed, deniable. They'll say you changed, that you asked for too much, that you became too intense, too sensitive, too different. But you didn't change, you just stopped pretending. And the moment you stopped making their comfort your responsibility, they smiled and turned. You see, betrayal often doesn't come from cruelty. It comes from discomfort, from the quiet panic someone feels when they realize they cannot control you anymore, when you stop playing your role in their story. Viktor Frankl once said, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. But what happens when the change isn't chosen? It's forced upon us by someone's departure. What do we do with the silence they leave behind? The echoes of laughter that once felt eternal now just haunt the corners of your memory. We grieve, we rage, we ache, but eventually we learn not to stop loving, but to start loving with eyes open, to stop handing out access in exchange for the illusion of connection, to stop believing that a warm presence always means a warm heart, because healing isn't about building walls, it's about building gates, boundaries, A gate can open, it can also close, and that's what your soul needed all along. Not to stop trusting, but to discern who is worthy of that trust. Epictetus said, "You are disturbed not by what happens, but by your opinion about it." And betrayal, it hurts most when we believe it says something about us, about our worth, about our identity. But what if it doesn't? What if betrayal is a mirror, not of your failure, but of their limitations? What if their leaving was the universe's way of finally clearing the stage for a new act? One where you no longer perform just to be chosen. It takes time to unlearn the belief that love requires sacrifice of self, to realize that your softness isn't the problem, your lack of protection is. Kindness is not weakness, but kindness without discernment becomes a leash others will pull until you collapse. So now, you begin again, with different eyes, with deeper silence, with wiser softness, because the truth is, the ones who betray you will almost always smile first. But now you know what that smile sometimes hides. And this knowing does not make you bitter. It makes you sovereign. Let it be the start of the life you live with your soul unguarded, but not undefended. A life where your kindness is chosen, not extracted, where your loyalty is sacred, not expected, where your trust is earned, not assumed. You are not here to be the mirror for someone else's comfort. You are here to be the flame, and not everyone deserves to sit by your fire. Let them go. Let the silence teach you what words never could. Let the ache become your compass. Let solitude become your sanctuary. Because you have not lost them. You have found yourself, and this time, you will not abandon you. Not for a smile, not for approval, not for the illusion of belonging. You are not too much. You were simply shining in a room that preferred shadows, and now you know, now you see, now you remember. Your soul has always known the difference between a smile that heals and a smile that hunts, and you will never forget again. They taught you that love was a contract, that if you gave enough of yourself, if you bled quietly, if you proved your worth through endurance, someone would finally stay. They never said that some people only love what they can use. They never said that many are drawn not to your spirit, but to your silence, to the space you give them to speak, to be held, to feel seen. Not because they see you, but because you don't demand to be seen in return. And so you became the safe space, the quiet one, the one who never asks too much, the one who holds secrets that were never yours to carry. But the cost of being the strong one is that no one checks to see if you're still bleeding. They assume your smile is real. They assume your stillness means peace. Because you were so good at making them feel held, you forgot what it meant to be held yourself. Until something breaks. Until someone leaves. Or worse, stays long enough to reach the softest part of you, then disappears without explanation. And it shatters something sacred. Not just the trust in them, but the trust in yourself. You begin to question your judgment, your intuition, your openness. You think, how did I not see it? How could I have been so blind? What is wrong with me that I keep attracting this? But the truth is, you were never blind. You saw the red flags. You just explained them away. Because deep down, you still believed love had to be earned. That being chosen meant sacrificing pieces of your soul, fighting the parts they didn't understand, watering down your depth so you wouldn't overwhelm them. You confused shrinking with safety. You mistook self-abandonment for connection, and that's the wound. Not what they did, but what you had to do to keep them. The betrayal was real, but the deeper betrayal was the way you left yourself for them. It's okay to admit that. It's okay to grieve, not just the person, but the version of you who didn't know better. The you who still thought that staying silent was noble. That being kind meant being available. That your presence had to come without a price. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So let's go into the unconscious now. Let's visit the moment you first learned that being yourself was dangerous. Maybe it was in a quiet ring where no one looked up when you cried. Maybe it was in the smile that faded when you showed anger. Maybe it was in the friend who grew cold when you said no. That's when you learned the rules. Be agreeable, Be soft, be small, and they will love you. But it's not love if it costs you your voice. It's not love if it wilts you. It's not love if it thrives only in your silence. You were not born to be understood by everyone. You were not meant to be light for those who refuse to leave their shadows. And not everyone who leaves your life is a loss. Some are subtractions that feel like amputation but become liberation. Their absence is not emptiness, it's space. Space for truth, space for breath, space for something real. Still, you'll mourn them, even the ones who hurt you, because they held the shape of something you needed. Even if it wasn't truly them, it was the idea of them that kept your hope alive. You don't just grieve the person, you grieve the promise, the imagined safety, the fantasy that maybe this time someone would stay when you stopped hiding. But that grief, that hollow, silent ache, that is the birthplace of your power. Because once the illusion dies, you're free. You're free to stop editing your soul, free to stop auditioning for belonging, free to stop dressing up your depth in politeness just to be palatable. Your softness is not the problem. Your loyalty is not the flaw. Your ability to love fully, even after betrayal, that is not weakness. That is resilience. That is the echo of a soul that refuses to harden, even after it has been pierced. And yet you must protect it. Not with armor, but with awareness. You must stop mistaking comfort for safety. Stop assuming smiles mean sincerity. Stop confusing shared pain with shared integrity. People will enter your life who feel familiar, not because they are right for you, but because their energy mirrors the wound you haven't healed. And if you are not conscious, you will call that wound love. This is the shadow work, the looking inward, the naming of patterns, the slow, painful unraveling of your unconscious loyalty to those who resemble your original abandonment. You are not unworthy of love. You are not too much. You are not broken. You were just trained to think that love must hurt, that devotion must cost, that you must earn what should have always been given freely. But now you're remembering. You are not here to prove your worth. You are here to embody it, to become the kind of presence that no longer bleeds for those who won't even hand you a bandage, to become the kind of silence that no longer feels like suppression, but like strength, to become the kind of soul that no longer trades itself just to feel less alone. Because real solitude is not a punishment. It's a cleansing, a sacred space where you can hear your own voice without interruption, where you can grieve without explanation, where you can love yourself not as a performance, but as a promise. And that is what you're building now. A new foundation, stone by stone, silence by silence, truth by truth. No more begging to be seen. No more staying where your light is too bright. No more shrinking to fit into broken spaces. You're not lost. You're waking up. And the pain that came from their smile, their betrayal, their absence, it's real. But it's not you. It's just the weather before the clearing. It's just the noise before the knowing. It's just the storm before the soil softens enough for something true to grow. Would you like me to continue with the next 1,200-word segment to complete the full script? And now in the quiet that remains, you can finally hear it, your own voice, the one that was buried under years of noise. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it doesn't scold you for the people you trusted, for the love you gave, for the silence you kept. It simply says, I was always here, waiting, beneath the mask, beneath the ache, beneath the performance. And for the first time, you realize the betrayal that hurt the most was not what they did. It was what you had to become to keep them close. That's what breaks you, not the ending, but the version of yourself you sacrificed just to be loved a little longer. You gave them the gentle parts, the secret parts, the raw, trusting places that only show themselves when someone says, I'm not going anywhere. And when they left, they didn't just walk away with memories. They walked away with pieces you weren't sure you could ever get back. But you can, not by chasing them, not by asking why, not by trying to make sense of why someone would hold you so closely, only to vanish when you softened. You heal by turning inward, not as retreat, but as return. You come back to the place within you that remembers how it felt to be whole before you were mirrored in someone else's gaze. Because long before anyone told you who to be, how to act, what to dim, you were complete. Carl Jung called this yourself, not the ego, not the persona, but the deep inner core that holds your instincts, your wholeness, your truth. And every time you trade yourself for approval, for attachment, for temporary closeness, you forget. You forget that you are already enough, that the love you crave from others is the reflection of the love you've withheld from yourself. But now, something has changed. Something has cracked. And in that crack, light. Not all at once, not blazing, just a flicker. But it's enough. Enough to begin. Enough to feel the truth settling like snowfall in the body you once abandoned, just to be chosen. This is where healing lives. Not in forgetting the betrayal, but in remembering yourself. Not in erasing the past, but in forgiving the you who didn't know any better. Because that version of you, the one who trusted too quickly, loved too deeply, stayed too long, they were weak. They were hopeful. And hope is not something to be ashamed of. Hope is holy. Hope is the soul saying, I still believe in connection, even after everything. But hope without discernment is dangerous. So now, you walk slower, you speak softer, not to be polite, but to honor your own pace. You choose solitude not as escape, but as ceremony, because in solitude there is no audience, no applause, no one to impress or prove yourself to, just you. And that is enough. Alan Watts once said, muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. So maybe you don't need to fix yourself. Maybe you just need to stop letting others stir the waters. Maybe your pain isn't asking for explanation, just space. Maybe your body isn't asking for control, just gentleness. Maybe your soul isn't asking to be saved, just remembered. You were never meant to carry everyone. You were never meant to pour until empty. You were never meant to chase those who only loved you when you were quiet. You are allowed to be seen in your fullness. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to say no. And those who cannot hold you in your wholeness are not your people. Let that truth ache. Let it rise. Let it burn clean the parts of you that still think you have to earn love by bleeding. Because you don't. Love, real love, doesn't ask you to disappear. It asks you to show up, to be real, to be messy, to be you, and it stays. Not because you're useful, not because you're convenient, but because you're true. But first, you have to stay with yourself. Through the ache, through the longing, through the empty spaces where others used to be, you have to stay, not physically, but spiritually, emotionally, fully. You have to stop abandoning your own soul every time someone else becomes uncomfortable with it. You are not here to be small. You are not here to be agreeable. You are here to be whole. And that wholeness, it starts with knowing who you are when no one else is watching. It begins in the quiet, in the mirror, in the tears that come not from weakness, but from finally telling yourself the truth, that you are tired, that you are done pretending, that you are worthy of love that doesn't require your silence. So sit with that. Hold it. Let it breathe. The betrayal happened, but it was also a doorway. It showed you who they were, but more importantly, it showed you who you are now, no longer willing to be. And that is not the end. That is the beginning. And now, you're standing at the threshold, not of someone else's story, not of the roles you used to play, but of your own becoming. There's no fanfare here, no dramatic transformation, just the slow return to the parts of you that waited patiently beneath the noise. The child who never stopped hoping. The shadow who carried your grief in silence. The soul who whispered, you don't need to earn what you already are. And you hear it now, not as an idea, but as a knowing, a quiet truth echoing through your bones. That you were never meant to be chosen by those who only love fragments. You are meant to be met by those who can hold the whole. But to be met, you must first stop leaving yourself. You must stop handing out intimacy in exchange for attention. Stop opening the door to your sanctuary for those who only visit when it's convenient. This is what betrayal teaches you if you let it. Not bitterness, not paranoia, but discernment, stillness, power without noise. The ones who betrayed you with a smile, they taught you how to see. They woke up the part of you that had gone numb. They showed you the cost of self-abandonment. And now you know. Your peace is not up for negotiation. You no longer chase. You no longer beg. You no longer pour into cups with cracks that you did not cause. Instead, you sit with yourself. You light the candle. You speak your name like it's the first time you've truly heard it. And it is sacred. You no longer look outward for reflection. You look inward for recognition. Because no one can name you but you. No one can soothe your ache like your own presence. No one can stay like the soul who finally decides to come home. This is not loneliness. This is clarity. Solitude is not punishment. It is the sanctuary where the truth reveals itself. And here, in this space, you begin to see betrayal for what it really was, a redirection, a necessary severing, a holy collapse of what was never truly yours to begin with. Because some people come into your life only to show you who you are when you are not loved well. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You cannot go back to shrinking, to over-explaining, to hoping someone finally notices your quiet breaking. You are not that version anymore. You are not unfinished. You are not waiting to be chosen. You are choosing yourself, fully, softly, without apology. And from that place, a new kind of love is born. Not the kind that clings, but the kind that grounds. Not the kind that demands, but the kind that respects. Not the kind that needs your silence, but the kind that can hold your roar. Because now, you speak, even when your voice trembles. You walk, even when the path is unfamiliar. You stay, not where you are tolerated, but where you are safe to be seen. This is your return. Not to who you were before they hurt you, but to who you were before you believed their love defined you. There is no revenge. There is no performance. Only peace, quiet, stillness. And if you listen closely, you'll hear it. The voice that once got lost in the noise. The part of you that never stopped believing in something sacred, in something real. It says, you were never too much. You were just asking to be held by someone who could not hold themselves. And now, you are holding you. So let them go. Let the betrayal become your teacher. Let the silence become your sanctuary. Let your own presence become the safest place you know. And when the world grows loud again, when another smile tempts you to forget, you'll remember this. The ones who betray you always smile first. But your soul, it never lies. Trust it. Follow it. Return to it. Because that's the smile that will never leave. The one you give when you finally come home to yourself. Quiet, whole, and free.